Have you ever wondered what it would be like to see life from above, to understand the path ahead and not just the steps beneath your feet? Jesus' words seemed to float on the soft evening breeze, stirring something in each disciple's heart. It was a still evening on the hillside, and the world around them was bathed in the soft amber glow of a setting sun. They had gathered here countless times before, but today felt different. There was an unusual quietness in the air, a sacredness they felt but couldn't explain. High above them, an eagle glided effortlessly across the sky, its wings spread wide as it drifted in slow, graceful circles. The disciples were captivated by the bird's silent strength, by the way it seemed to drift on the wind, seeing everything below. They longed to feel that same peace, that same freedom. The journey had been challenging, filled with miracles, yes, but also with sacrifices, doubts, and fears. They were tired, and each one carried his own secret questions. "Look at that eagle," Jesus said softly, his voice gentle yet carrying the weight of deep wisdom. "From where it flies, it sees everything, the rivers, the fields, the trees, and the hills all at once. It doesn't fix its eyes on just one point, it sees the whole picture. It knows the way." Peter, always the first to speak, looked at Jesus with a mixture of frustration and longing. "Lord, I want to see as the eagle does," he said, his voice low. "But I'm so often caught up in worries and struggles, too focused on what's right in front of me. I don't know how to rise above them." Peter's words echoed in the hearts of the other disciples, who, though quiet, felt the same tension. Each of them had a weight they bore, unspoken doubts, questions about the future, worries about their families. They had left so much behind to follow Jesus, yet they still felt bound by fears they couldn't shake. Jesus looked at Peter, his gaze filled with compassion and understanding. "Peter," he said softly, "seeing like the eagle isn't about distance. It's about wisdom and trust. To rise above the worries of each day, to see the journey as a whole, this brings peace." They listened, but their hearts were still restless. There was something more they needed, a wisdom that would guide them through the unknown. Jesus sensed this and smiled gently, motioning for them to sit. As they settled into the soft grass, the sky around them deepening to shades of purple and blue, he began to speak. "There was once a village," Jesus began, his voice calm and rhythmic like the flow of a river. "A small village nestled high in the mountains, surrounded by valleys, rivers, and trees. The people there lived simple lives, but they faced harsh winters, storms that would bury them in snow, cutting them off from the world and bringing great hardship." The disciples listened intently, picturing the little village in their minds. They could imagine the mountains rising high above, the snow-covered paths, the people's fear as winter approached. "In this village," Jesus continued, "there was a woman, a wise elder known for her quiet ways. She had lived through many winters and had learned to prepare her home with care. Every year, as the leaves turned and the air grew colder, she would gather firewood, preserve food, and prepare her home. She would tell the villagers, 'Think beyond today, see what lies ahead. Prepare for the winter to come.'" Jesus paused, his eyes drifting over his disciples, reading their expressions, sensing their thoughts. The disciples could see her in their minds, a figure of strength and quiet wisdom, a woman who carried knowledge beyond the immediate needs of the day. "But most of the villagers," Jesus continued, his voice tinged with sadness, "were too busy with their daily routines. They were caught up in the moment, focused on their work, their families, their plans for the day. They would say to her, 'Why worry about tomorrow when today is enough?' And they ignored her, laughing at what they saw as needless preparation." Jesus paused, letting his words linger. The disciples exchanged glances, feeling a mixture of respect for the woman and recognition of their own tendency to overlook wisdom in favor of immediate needs. "One year," Jesus said softly, his voice filled with sorrow, "a winter came suddenly, fiercer and colder than any before. The storms arrived early, blanketing the village in snow, blocking roads and cutting off supplies. Fear filled the hearts of the villagers, and in their desperation, they went door to door, seeking help, hoping someone would have enough food or firewood to share. The disciples could feel the fear in his words, the sense of isolation and helplessness that must have gripped the villagers. They imagined the biting cold, the sight of empty cupboards, and the cries of hungry children. But when they came to the old woman's home, Jesus said, his voice now warm, they found her fire burning bright, her shelves stocked with food, her home filled with warmth and light. She welcomed them in, sharing everything she had. Day after day she fed them, kept them warm, and spoke to them with kindness. Her foresight and love saved many lives. The disciples were moved, some with tears in their eyes, imagining the woman's quiet strength, her willingness to give all she had for those who once laughed at her. They felt the power of her foresight, a wisdom that came not only from seeing what was ahead but from understanding the needs of others. Peter, his voice choked with emotion, spoke up. Master, she didn't just save them with her supplies. She saved them with her heart, with her willingness to give. Jesus turned to Peter, his gaze filled with a gentle, knowing light. Yes, Peter. Her provisions were a gift, but it was her heart that gave life to that gift. Her wisdom was not only in seeing the winter ahead but in understanding that love prepares, that compassion reaches beyond oneself. The disciples were silent, each one reflecting on what it meant to live with such vision, such love. They felt the pull to see beyond themselves, to look ahead with a wisdom that embraced all those they would encounter. James, his voice soft but filled with curiosity, asked, Lord, was she always this wise? Did she always know to prepare? Jesus looked at James and nodded slowly. No, James. Like all of us, she learned. In her youth, she faced her own hardships, her own winters unprepared. But with each passing year, she began to see, to understand the value of looking beyond the moment. She learned that life was not just about surviving each day but about preparing with love, so others would not face what she once had. The disciples felt a deeper respect for the woman, recognizing that her wisdom was not given, but earned through experience and compassion. They saw that wisdom was not something achieved overnight. It was the result of patience, love, and a willingness to see beyond oneself. Thomas, the doubter, spoke up, his voice laced with sorrow. Master, what if we try to see ahead but fail? What if we make mistakes, unable to foresee every storm? Jesus turned to him, his gaze full of compassion. Thomas, seeing like the eagle doesn't mean knowing everything, nor does it mean a life free from storms. It means seeing with trust, with faith. It's about rising above your own fears, looking beyond what you feel to the hope that lies ahead. It's about trusting in a path that extends far beyond what you can see. The disciples felt the weight of his words, a call to something greater, to rise above the present, to trust in something larger than themselves. They felt the stirring of purpose, a sense that they could live with vision not just for themselves but for those who would follow. Jesus continued, his voice gentle but powerful. Imagine, my friends, if you prepared not just for yourselves but for those around you. Imagine if you saw beyond today's worries, choosing instead to live with a love that foresight gives, a love that prepares. Tears glistened in John's eyes as he thought of the old woman's kindness, her quiet sacrifice. Master, he said, voice thick with emotion, she didn't just see the winter ahead, did she? She saw what they would need. She saw their lives beyond her own. Jesus smiled, placing a hand on John's shoulder. Yes, John. To live with wisdom is to live with a heart that reaches beyond itself, that prepares out of love, that sacrifices so that others may live. The disciples each felt a warmth growing within them, a stirring of hope and purpose. They saw that foresight wasn't just about knowing, it was about loving, about giving beyond the present for the sake of those who would follow. They felt a profound joy mixed with humility, realizing that they too could carry this wisdom, could be like the old woman, preparing for the lives they would touch. Jesus gave his final message, his words filled with the strength of the wisdom he carried. Remember, true wisdom does not only see what is, it sees what can be. Like the eagle, rise above the present, see the journey beyond the storm, to the peace that lies on the other side. Let your hearts be like that eagle's, brave, compassionate, and always looking forward. The disciples rose slowly, their hearts full, each one carrying a light of understanding, a sense of purpose, a call to see beyond themselves. As they made their way down the hillside, they looked up one last time at the eagle, feeling a kinship with the bird that now seemed like a messenger from God, reminding them to soar, to love, to see beyond. They knew that they had been given a gift, a vision of life that went beyond worry, beyond fear, rooted in a faith that they could now share, a love that could change not just their own lives but the lives of all they would meet. And as they left that place, they felt the journey had only just begun, a journey led by a heart that was fearless, full of faith, and always looking forward. This is end of the story. Comment Amen if you believe in Jesus' blessings. Please like this video and subscribe this channel for more Jesus story like this. May the God watch over you.